So, herzlich willkommen. No, it's good. It's like a table.
Ich weiß schon.
Ja. So, wir lesen heute von Srimad Bhagavatam, 9. Kanto, 4. Kapitel, und auf der Tafel steht Vers 24, aber wir fangen noch ein bisschen früher an. Das werden wir alle jetzt hören. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, the fourth chapter in the 9th canto, the name of the chapter is Ambarish Maharaj offends Durvasha Muni. Ambarish Maharaj offends Durvasha Muni. So, on Monday, Vajendra, he was reading the first verse. So today is Saturday. So a lot has happened since Monday. Now we have verse 24, but all the verses in between are such nectar verses. And we're not just gonna jump over them, because why should we jump over all the nectar? We shouldn't.
Warum 24 heute?
Ich weiß nicht, wie it's always counted every day one verse, but if there's no classes, yeah, I don't know. I don't count the verses, so there is one small story, which goes from verse number 2 to verse 12, and where the blessings, if you know this pastimes, we can just read the blessings of the pastime. That's verse 12. If one hears and chants and remembers this narration in the morning and evening with great attention, he certainly becomes learned, experienced in understanding the Vedic hymns, and expert in self-realization. So who don't want to become expert in self-realization? So this is actually the story of Nabharga, who is Ambarish Maharaj's father. And Nabharga, his father's name was also Nabharga. He was the son of Nabharga. There's a long A on it. So he went to his guru's ashram for a long time. And he was such a long time in the ashram of the guru that his brothers, when it came time to distribute the riches of his father, the brothers, they were thinking, oh, he's going to be a renunciate, he's not coming back. So we are going to distribute all the riches of our father between us as sons. And we don't count Nabharga because he's not here, he's on the path of spiritual realization. So, but he came back. And when he came back and he asked his brother, so what, am I going to get anything from the wealth of my father? And the brother said, no, we already distributed it amongst ourselves, but you can get the father. So they said the father was still living when they already started distributing the wealth of the father, and the father was still living. So they were distributing this wealth. And Nabharga, he went to his father and said, so, is it right that I'm getting you? And the brothers and the father said, no, you cannot have me. I'm my own person. I don't want to be the property of anybody. So, but you go to the yagyas where they're performing Vedic rituals, and you will see they will do on the 6th day, they will make some kind of mistake or something, and they need to pay some fees for the yagyas. And then that riches which are generated from the yagyas, you can have that. So he went to the yagyas, and when the priests who had done the yagyas, when they were descending to the spiritual world, they're not going to take all the wealth from the yagya with them, not to the spiritual world. They were going to the heavenly planets. So the wealth from the material, from the earth, doesn't have so much value on the higher planets. It has no value on the higher planets. I don't think so. At least they are not going to take the wealth with them. So they left this wealth with Nabarga, and then a black person came, and that black person was Lord Shiva. And he kind of like claimed it, but somehow or other, Nabarga, because of his attitude, he said, you can just have all this wealth, everything is good. So and then Lord Shiva, he was pleased with him, and then in the end he got something to sustain himself from the, as his father has said, from the wealth of the yagyas. So that is the story. If you hear that story and chant and remember this narration in the morning and the evening with great attention, you certainly becomes learned, experienced in understanding of the Vedic hymns, and expert in self-realization. So it's just a very small story, but there is a great blessing in that story. And then because Nabarga, because he is Ambarish Maharaj's father, then we are going to read, because I was thinking some of these verses are just really amazing. And Srila Prabhupada actually, especially verse 18 to 20, Srila Prabhupada is quoting quite often. So we should have a look at this. And then in the end, we will come to verse 24. I hope we get all the way there. So, verse 13. From Nabarga, Maharaj Ambarish took birth. Maharaj Ambarish was an exalted devotee, celebrated for his great merits, although he was cursed by an infallible Brahmana. The curse could not touch him. So they are already actually, it's like in this first verse about Maharaj Ambarish, it's actually the essence of the teaching, or the how you say, the quintessence of what Maharaj Ambarish is about is already there, because he was cursed by an infallible Brahmana. Infallible means a Brahmana with he had no faults. So he was cursed by a Brahmana who, normally such a curse by an infallible Brahmana would have full effect. You cannot, when a Brahmana is cursing you, just a normal Brahmana. We have Shringi in the Bhagavatam, who's the son of a Brahmana who's not actually qualified. He's cursing Maharaj Parikshit, and Maharaj Parikshit is not giving back that curse. But here we have, that was just the son of a Brahmana. He was not even qualified, and he cursed the king, the emperor, and that curse worked. But here we have an infallible Brahmana, Durvasa Muni, who is giving this curse. But as the verse says, the curse could not touch him. So this is a very special story in the Bhagavatam, where we can learn a lot about the potency of devotees, and the difficulty one can get entangled in if one offends devotees. So we just read on. King Parikshit inquired, "O great personality, Maharaj Ambarish was certainly most exalted and meritorious in character. I wish to hear about him. How surprising it is that the curse of a Brahmana, which is insurmountable, could not act upon him." So immediately Parikshit Maharaj, he picks up on the point how special it is that the curse couldn't touch him. A curse of a brahmana, and again, who is insurmountable. It's like a mountain. You cannot conquer it. It's as big as a mountain. So, and then Sukadeva Goswami, he says, Maharaj Ambarish, the most fortunate personality, achieved the rule of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands. Why is there an S if it's just islands? It's so difficult to read. If you're dyslexia, it's like okay. So islands. I'm sorry, and achieve inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity on earth. Although such a position is rarely obtained, Maharaj Ambarish did not care for it at all, for he knew very well that all such opulence is material. Like that which is imagined in a dream, such opulence will ultimately be destroyed. The king knew that any non-devotee who attains such opulences merges increasingly into material nature's mode of darkness. Purport. So here's a short purport. For a devotee, material opulence is insignificant, whereas for non-devotees, material opulence is the cause of increasing bondage. For a devotee knows that anything material is temporary, whereas non-devotees regard the temporary so-called happiness as everything and forgets the path of self-realization. Thus, for the non-devotees, material opulence is a disqualification for spiritual advancement. So here Prabhupada is speaking about the mood of Ambarish Maharaj and how he naturally, although he had all the riches which are there within the material world, he was naturally not attached. And in the verse it says that such riches, if they are there for a non-devotee, they become the cause of his attachment to the mode of darkness. And Prabhupada is picking up on this point, the difference between how a devotee sees material opulence as something temporary and how a non-devotee becomes just more and more attached and more confused, actually, by the bondage which is there in material opulence. It's actually, for a materialist, it's actually better to be poor than to be rich. Because if you're rich, you think, oh, I am the greatest kind, the richness. It's not so easy to find a rich person within this world who is simultaneously rich, materially well situated, and also has like a humble character. That's a very rare combination within the material world. If people usually, if they get too much material opulence or all these materials, name, fame, all these things, they usually, it goes with that the false ego becomes inflated and they become proud and yeah. These good qualities of a saint is not found usually when one is very materially well situated. So in verse number 17, Maharaj Ambarish was a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, and of the saintly persons who are the Lord's devotees. Because of this devotion, he thought of the entire universe as being as insignificant as a piece of stone. So his understanding was there's nothing there. He was not attached. So all of these opulences, they couldn't bind him. He could see what it was. And now we come to verse number 18, which is very famous and which is it was interesting because just yesterday in the Bhagavad Gita, I was reading in the 6th chapter, verse number 18, and there this verse is quoted, and also all the 3 Sanskrit verses, the full Sanskrit verses, they are there in the 6th chapter. So these verses are very important, and these are kind of verses that even you don't sit down and learn the verse, you may still know it a little bit, just because it's recited so many times, and Prabhupada also quoted many times. Saivai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunata Nane Karau Harea Madia Mahajanal Dasu Shrutim Chakacharu Satkat Hahodaye. So there are like 3 verses. So I read the translation. And this is very interesting because if you tell something to somebody, they may not understand. But if you do it, then it's much more easy. Show me. Don't just tell me, show me. So this is one of the verses which is like one of the most show me verses which are there in the Bhagavatam, because here are all the things that Maharaj Ambarish was doing. Always, Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditation upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temple, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his senses of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to the Lord, and he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasad. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires. So here we have many things. We have Ambarish Maharaj, we have his mind, we have his words, we have his hands, his ears, his eyes. And then I like this very much, the sense of touch. It's nice to touch something. So what did he touch? He touched the devotees.
Nicht mehr so praktiziert.
No, but it's interesting because Mulla Prakriti, she was making interviews of many different devotees. It's a Prabhupada disciple, Mulla Prakriti, and she made many interviews. And one time, Prabhupada had told Sridhar Swami, he had sent him a message, like a telegram or something, that he is coming on this day. He will be coming to Mayapur. And he didn't say the time, but he said, I'm coming on this day. And then the whole day, Sridhar Swami, he didn't eat. He was just walking on his balcony that he could see the entrance of where, when somebody would come to the gate, he would see it. And then, like in the early afternoon, Srila Prabhupada finally came. And then Srila Prabhupada, he had one devotee with him, I think Achyutananda, He had one of his disciples with him, and Prabhupada, he just dropped his bag and started running when he saw Sridhar Swami. And Sridhar Swami, he also just ran down from the place, and they embraced and they touched, and they were trying to touch the feet of the other person. You know, they were like rolling about and touching. And so this is there in our culture, you know, to touch the feet of the devotees and like that. So this is Maharaj Ambarish, he's giving this example. And then we have the sense of smell, and we have the tongue, and then we have the legs, and we have the head for bowing down, and then we have all his desires. So this is like when you speak about the 9 processes of devotional service, this is even like a little bit elaborated. It goes a little more detailed how to do it. So this is very nice. Show me verse. Show me how to do this. So there's a purport on this. You can read that. In Bhagavad Gita 7.1, the Lord recommends Maya Ashakta Mana Prata Yoga Junja Mat Ashraya. This indicates that one must execute devotional service under the guidance of a devotee or directly under the guidance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not possible, however, to train oneself without guidance from the spiritual master. Therefore, according to the instructions of Srila Rupa Goswami, the first business of a devotee is to accept a bona fide spiritual master who can train him to engage his various senses in rendering transcendental service to the Lord. The Lord also says in the Bhagavad Gita 7.1, Ashamshayam Shamagramam Yata Yashya Chat Trinu. In other words, one who wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in completeness, one must follow the prescription given by Krishna by following in the footsteps of Maharaj Ambarish. It is said, Rishikena Rishikesha Shevanam Bhakti Uchyate. Bhakti means to engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses, Krishna, who is called Rishikesh or Achyuta. These words are used in these verses. Achyuta Sat Kat Haye Rishikesha Pradabindabane. The word Achyuta or Rishikesh are also used in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the Katha spoken directly by Krishna, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the Krishna Katha, is also Krishna Katha, because everything described in the Bhagavatam is in relationship with Krishna. So this is a very important purport also. And we will see, we still have some verses to go to 24, but I just was thinking these purports are so poignant, they are so clear. And usually if I would just have a class on one verse, I would go to the Bhagavad Gita 7.1 and see what is actually spoken about here. But we have to hurry on because we have more verses to go. Yeah. Yes. Hare Krishna, welcome. Nice. Yes, take pillow. So we are reading from the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the chapter is called Ambarish Maharaj Offended by Durvasa Muni. And we are hearing about Ambarish Maharaj. So, in performing his prescribed duties as king, Maharaj Ambarish always offered the result of his royal activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the enjoyer of everything and is beyond the perception of the material senses. He certainly took advice from Brahmanas who were faithful devotees of the Lord, and thus he ruled the planet Earth without difficulty. So this is a very important purport, because it's actually a purport for kings. How to do for the kings? What should the kings do? So Ambarish Maharaj, he is the proper example. He's the perfect example, and Srila Prabhupada is using his example to speak to the leaders of society how one should actually perform one's duties. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhoktaram yakyatapasam savaloka maheshwaram suridam savabhutanam gyatvam mam shantim richyati. People are very much anxious to live in peace and prosperity in this material world. And here in the Bhagavad Gita, the peace formula is given personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone should understand that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate proprietor of all the planets and is therefore the enjoyer of all activities, political, social, cultural, religious, economic, and so on. The Lord has given perfect advice in Bhagavad Gita, and Maharaj Ambarish, as an ideal executive head, ruled the entire world as a Vaishnava, taking advice from Vaishnava Brahmanas. The Shastras enjoin that even though a Brahmana may be well versed in the occupational brahminical duties and may be very learned in Vedic knowledge, he cannot give advice as a guru until he is a Vaishnava. Satkama nipano vipro mantra chantra vishadara avaishnava guru nashat vaishnava sva pacho guruhu. Therefore, as indicated here by the word Tannishta Viprabhitaha, Maharaj Ambarish took advice from Brahmanas who were pure devotees of the Lord. For ordinary Brahmanas who were merely learned scholars or expert in performing ritualistic ceremonies are not competent to give advice. In modern times, there are legislative assemblies whose members are authorized to make laws for the welfare of the state, but according to this description of the kingdom of Maharaj Ambarish, the country or the world should be ruled by a chief executive whose advisors are all devotee Brahmanas. Such advisors or members of the legislative assembly should not be professional politicians, nor should they be selected by the ignorant public. Wow, Prabhupada is really strong. No democracy. It's very strong word. It's very strong. So it says here, such advisors or members of the legislative assembly should not be professional politicians. It shouldn't be a job you do just as a professional. Nor should they be selected by the ignorant public. Because if the people are all ignorant, what are they going to select? Something really ignorant. And we have proof of that all over the world. So rather, they should be appointed by the king. When the king of the executive head of the state is a devotee and he follows the instructions of devotee Brahmanas in ruling the country, everyone will be peaceful and prosperous. So here there is a big fear. Like in France, they just took down the king. In Russia, they took down the Tsar. You know, they just killed the whole royal family. It was very, very barbaric. Even one, who was this? I don't know if it was Merkel, somebody who was invited to go to Russia, and she said, "I'm not going before the old." No, it was the Queen. It was the Queen of England. She was invited to go to Russia, and she says, "I'm not going before at least the Tsar Nicholas, the Tsar that they killed, before his bones and his remains are properly honored." He get a proper burial, because they would just dig down somewhere. Nobody knew where they were. It was very, very gross. So, huh? Yeah, they were family. That's actually all the royal families in Europe, at least, they're all like interconnected. All interconnected. They're all married to, all the different ones, and sons and daughters, and everybody goes back to Queen Victoria or something like that, and one of the tsars in Russia. I know in the Danish royal household, they're also in split. Yeah, everybody. But the point is, these kings are not devotees of the Lord, and therefore they are not perfect rulers, and therefore people, they have a fear of a king. Because if the king is just like we were reading about the materialist with the opulence, if it's just somebody with a lot of power and opulence, but if there is no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are actually not qualified to lead the people and to have a society where the advisors are devotee brahmanas, and where the whole society are full of knowledge and prosperity and peace, and everything is there, if the king is qualified. So therefore people, they don't want kings, because instantly they know from within they're actually very materialistic. Some of the kings are quite nice. I have a feeling from the king in Denmark. I like him very much. He has a good example for the people, the queen, which were there before also. But that's all sentimental, because they still don't have the quality of being a pure devotee. They may have maybe some speckle, some small quality, which are good. Actually, when such persons like a king of a country, if they are just normal people, we think, oh, they are so nice. If they are not puffed up by their position, if they're just nice persons, if they bring their children to school by a bicycle, we think, oh, what a wonderful king, Then, but it's not the standard from Srila Prabhupada. That's not the standard. The standard is that they should be pure devotees of the Lord. When the king and his advisors are perfect devotees, nothing can go wrong in the state. All the citizens should become devotees of the Lord, and then their good character will automatically follow. Yasha Bhakti Bhagavati Akinchana Saivais Gunas Tatsva Samasta Suraha Havar Abhaktas Kuto Mahan Gunan Manoratena Sati Dava to Bahi. One who has unflinching faith, unflinching devotion in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has all good qualities of the demigods. But one who is not a devotee of the Lord has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he is hovering on the mental plane and is certain to be attracted by the glaring material energy. So, Mano Ratena, it's like riding on the chariot on the mind. Yeah? The mind is like a chariot, and if one is not a devotee, has unflinching faith or devotion in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will be riding on the chariot of the mind, and the glaring material energy will become very attractive. Citizens under the guidance of a Krishna conscious king will become devotees, and then there will be no need to enact new laws every day or to reform the way of life in the state. If the citizens are trained to become devotees, they will automatically become peaceful and honest. And if they are guided by a devoted king, advised by devotees, the state will not be in the material world, but will be in the spiritual world. All the states of the world should therefore follow the ideal of the rule or administration of Maharaj Ambarish as described here. So this is the purport for the kings. They should come and they should read the Bhagavatam, and then they understand their own path should be the path of being purified and becoming a devotee of the Supreme, and they should only take advice from Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. So now we have verse number 22. I think we make it to 24 if we are lucky. I just didn't want to jump through this because these are... She said I can choose if I want to take all the verses in between. I said, yes, I'm going to take the verses in between. So now we have verse 22. In desert countries where there flowed the river Saraswati, Maharaj Ambarish performed great sacrifices like the Asvamedha Yajna and thus satisfied the master of all Yajnas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such sacrifices were performed with great opulence and suitable paraphernalia and with contributions of dakshina to the brahmanas, who were supervised by great personalities like Vasishta, Asita, Gautama, representing the king, the performer of the sacrifices. So we have the brahmanas who are qualified, we have the king, and we have great saints and holy persons who represents the king and who perform the sacrifice. And it's interesting because Maharaj Ambarish, it's a desert country. So it's not a country where there is natural an overflow of opulence. But even within this desert country, because he was doing his duty as a king, these countries even, as we will hear, I think in the purport we will hear, they even became very prosperous. And people could actually, normally, you have to be really austere to live in a desert. Huh? You know, we have these nomad people who live in the Bedouin people who live in the deserts, but they are really austere, and they have a very they have to keep moving, and it's a very, very difficult life. So the purport. When one performs ritualistic sacrifices as prescribed in the Vedas, one need expert brahmanas known as yajnika brahmanas. In Kali Yuga, however, there is a scarcity of such brahmanas. Therefore, in Kali Yuga, that's our time, the sacrifice recommended in the Shastra is Sankirtan Yajna. Yajnai Sankirtana Prayai Jayandihi Sumeta Saha. Instead of spending money unnecessary on performing yajnas, impossible to perform in this age of Kali because of the scarcity of yajnika brahmanas, one who is intelligent performs the Sankirtan Yajna. Without properly performed yajnas to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be scarcity of rain. Therefore, the performance of yajna is essential. Without yajna, which means offer or sacrifice, without yajna, there will be a scarcity of rain, and because of this scarcity, no food grains will be produced, and there will be famines. It is the duty of the king, therefore, to perform different types of yajnas, such as the Asvamedha Yajna, which is a horse sacrifice, which we don't do, to maintain the production of food grains. Anna bhavanti bhutani. Without food grains, both men and animals will starve. Therefore, yakya is necessary for the state to perform, because by yakya, the people in general will be fed sumptuously. The brahmanas and yajnaka priests should be sufficiently paid for their expert service. This payment is called dakshina. Maharaj Ambarish, as the head of the state, performed all these yagyas through great personalities like Vasishtha, Gautama, and Asita. Personally, however, he was engaged in devotional service as mentioned before. Sai Vai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. The king or head of state must see that things go on well under proper guidance. He must be an idle devotee, as exemplified by Maharaj Ambarish. It is the duty of the king to see that food grains are produced even in desert countries, what to speak of elsewhere. So now we have the last verse before verse 24. In the sacrifice arranged by Maharaj Ambarish, the members of the assembly and the priest, especially Hota, Audgata, Brahma, and some other thing, I don't know, were gorgeously dressed, and they looked exactly like demigods. They eagerly saw to the proper performance of yajna. So the priests are qualified and they are gorgeously dressed. That means that from the previous yajnas they performed, they got gifts, so they could be gorgeously dressed. So actually in the purport before, Srila Prabhupada is making the point that we don't have the qualified brahmanas for doing all these elaborate yajnas. Maybe now, like when they were installing Lord Nrsingadev, they got a special brahmana from South India who supposedly could ignite the fire with mantras. But it looked like he would. There were like 4 yajna-kunds out in front of Nrsinga temple, and there were brahmanas sitting on each yajna. And when they were installing Lord Nrsingadev, they had all these yajnas, chanting mantras and making fire and pouring the ghee, and so that Lord Nrsingadev could be properly installed. And one of these brahmanas was like a very qualified yajna brahmanas. So there may be on the planet, there may be a few, but not enough to perform yajnas, all the yajnas we need to perform to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore Srila Prabhupada is saying, in this age, we are performing the Sankirtan Yajna, which means we come together and we sing. And it's a very simple process, but it's a very powerful process. And you don't need to be 4,000 people. You can just be 5, and it's still the same. It's a yajna. You give your energy, your attention to the holy name, and this is the yajna. This is the sacrifice which is meant for this age. So, do we stop here or do we do 24 also? Okay, so we start reading the Sanskrit. Svaguna pratito yasha. Svaguna pratito yasha. Manuyaya amara priya. Manuyaya amara priya. Shivabhya upakayabi. Shivabhya Upakayabhya Uttama Titam Uttama Tistam Svaguna Pratito Yasha Manujaya Amara Priya Shivabhya Upakayabhya Uttama Chestitam Svaguna Pratito Yasha Svaguna Pratito Yasha Shloka Chestita Svargo Life in the heavenly planets. Na not. Pratita a subject for aspiration. Yasha of whom? Ambarish Maharaj. Manujai by the citizens. Amara Priya very dear even to the demigods. Srinvavi who were accustomed to hear. Upakayabi and accustomed to chant. Uttama the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chestitam about the glorious activities. Translation. The citizens of the state of Maharaj Ambarish were accustomed to chanting and hearing about the glorious activities of the personality of Godhead. Thus, they never aspired to be elevated to the heavenly planets, which are extremely dear even to the demigods. Purport. A pure devotee who is trained in the practice of chanting and hearing of the holy names of the Lord and his fame, his qualities, his form and paraphernalia, and so on, is never interested in elevation to the heavenly planets, even though such places are extremely dear, even to the demigods. Narayana Parashave Nakutushta Shabipyate Swarga Pavarga Narakeshu Apitulyata Darshinaha. Devotees solely engage in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan never fear any condition of life. The heavenly planet, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same to a devotee. That's from the Bhagavatam 6:17-28. A devotee is always situated in the spiritual world. Therefore, he does not desire anything. He is known as akarma, or desireless, because he has nothing to desire except to render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because Maharaj Ambarish was the most exalted devotee of the Lord, he trained his subjects in such a ways that the citizens in his state were not interested in anything material, including even the happiness of the heavenly planets. And the verse again, Svaguna pratito yasya manujai amara priya shinvabhya upagayabhya uramashloka cheshtitam. The citizens of the state of Maharaj Ambarish were accustomed to chanting and hearing about the glorious activities of the personality of Godhead. Thus, they never aspired to be elevated to the heavenly planets, which are extremely dear even to the demigods. So, this was the verse for today. Omagyana timirandasya jana jana shalakaya chaksho unmilitam yena tashmai shri gurave namaha chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale svayam rupa kadamayam dadati svam dadantikam vanchakapacharupyasya kripasindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse is very interesting that the citizens of Maharaj Ambarish, they were trained in such a way by hearing and chanting that they didn't desire anything. They didn't even desire liberation, which is, for many spiritualists, that's what they're really going to. They're performing spiritual life so they can be liberated. But even that they didn't desire, and they didn't desire to go to the heavenly planets. When we hear about the heavenly planets, we have no idea how it actually is on the heavenly planets. So we just hear the sentence, the heavenly planets, and we cannot imagine what it is. So, but if we actually, there are some descriptions in the Bhagavatam about the heavenly planets, how you don't get old, it's like elaborate, the opulence and the enjoyment which is there. It's like limitless enjoyment, the heavenly planets, the beauty, the freshness of everything. Everything is just so enjoyable. And Srila Prabhupada, one time he said to his devotees that I'm not going to explain so much about the heavenly planets because then you start to desire to go there. But these citizens of Maharaj Ambarish, they actually knew the opulence of the heavenly planets. They are not so ignorant. We hear just the word heavenly planets. Yes, okay, that's just another place, but we don't really understand what it is, how extraordinary, fulfilling the enjoyment is in the heavenly planets. We don't understand. But the citizens of Maharaj Ambarish, they knew, but they were still not interested because they were completely absorbed in hearing and chanting and performing devotional service. And they were actually already, like we read in another, his kingdom, Maharaj Ambarish kingdom, was already in the transcendental realm. It was already transformed into the spiritual world. So the spiritual world, obviously, it's a higher place than the heavenly planets. So if you have something far superior, you don't long for the heavenly planets. So that was the... Haribo. Haribo. Yeah, she is a very lucky soul. She has been born at this time where Sankirtan Yajna is going on. The proper Yajna for this age, the singing and chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is going on. And she can take full advantage. I have very often had this realization that there's a whole generation of souls who are born just to sing. You know, you hear some of the young Krishna devotees who are singing. They just sing so beautifully, and they sing with such love and with such heart that it's completely transforming the life of other people when they sing together. So my theory that these are great personalities, they just take birth now and they're just born to sing, to perform the yajna, the sacrifice of this age, which is the Sankirtan yajna, to come together and sing. So let us give her all encouragement and blessings that she will be one of these souls who are here just to sing, just to give an example how to perform devotional service, how to be absorbed in the glories of the Lord. So maybe there are some comments, questions.
Ich frage mal auf Deutsch.
Ja.
Ist mit Sankirtan Yajna nicht eigentlich mehr gemeint, das gemeinsame Chanten in der Öffentlichkeit? Anstatt, sage ich jetzt mal, so 5 unter uns hier, ist ja kein so direktes Predigen. Ist damit nicht gemeint mehr in der Öffentlichkeit, wie Lord Chaitanya es getan hat?
Lord Chaitanya hat beides getan. Es ging lange Zeit in das Haus von Shivas Thakur. I still speak in English. For a long time in the house of Shivas Thakur, all of Lord Chaitanya and his associates, they would come together and perform Sankirtan Yajna. So they would do the Yajna behind closed door. And then at one point they took it out in the public. But they were also, the Yajna is not just the preaching. We think the Yajna is the preaching, but it's not. The Yajna is actually the being together. Sang, kirtan, sang means together. That means not japa, which you do alone. It means together in a congregation and chanting. So it can be behind closed doors. It is still a yajna. You still put the yajna is that you put your full concentration on the holy names of the Lord and you offer them with love and devotion. So this you can do together with Sankirtan. It means together, so it's not something you do alone. You have to be at least 2 persons to do a Sankirtan Yajna. You can do Sankirtan Yajna, you have your little altar at home and you have your katas and then maybe a small madanga, you offer some incense, some flowers, and you sit down and sing together. You can do that, and that is a Sankirtan Yajna. You can do that at home. It's very powerful. You will see if you can do that every day. Just spend some time just sitting and you can chant different prayers, different holy names. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya. You can chant different mantras like that. But of course, the Hare Krishna mantra it's a very easy process, and you don't need to, have special skills to do that. It's a blessing extra of Lord Chaitanya that one can just sit and chant together. One sit and chant together. You can stand, you can dance. And if you go out, it's like a Maha Sankirtan if you go out. And it becomes like a big. But it's still Sankirtan, even if it's behind closed doors or in your home or in, like that. And even Prabhupada, there is this story how there was one businessman who came to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada couldn't kind of like talk to him about spiritual things. So Prabhupada just took his harmonium and he sat and he just sang for him for 40 minutes. Just a personal Sankirtan Yajna for this man, So this can also be done. You can also just sit and sing, like that. And Prabhupada even, he would also sit and sing when he was alone. So his Sankirtan Yajna was Prabhupada alone. No, he was sitting there with the whole Guru Parampara and all the previous acharyas and all, Narada Muni and everybody was there. Prabhupada, he would not be alone. performing yakya. He would do it with the whole presence of. So a person like Srila Prabhupada can perform Sankirtan yakya even if he is just alone in a room. So that's also possible.
And even the introduction of also lecture that you just gave.
Yes, we have the whole introduction here. You read the introduction, it's like 13 pages. It's just Prabhupada talking. And he's speaking the whole introduction, and luckily it's recorded and it's preserved and it's there. And it's put as the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's very powerful. So, according to who you are, you can even perform Sankirtan Yakya alone in your home. But of course, taking the mission out and giving the holy name to other. The interesting thing is that when you do that, you may get even a higher taste. It may be even more sweet. Sitting and chanting us together, devotees who already have been chanting for some years like that may be very sweet, but like Inadumna Maharaj, he was just telling that when he goes to China and he sits in a room and there are people there, they're chanting for the first time, always like tears are just coming from their eyes because they're hearing the holy name for the first time, and it's like they're recognizing their deep spirituality which had been forgotten and lost. And they immediately recognize, and tears are coming. So that is, of course, higher taste, that people are moved and they start their spiritual journey and they are blessed like that. That's, of course, it's a higher taste. To give Krishna to somebody else, that's a higher taste. So there. Yeah.
Yuga-Dharma, ist es auch zu anderen den Mantra zu geben?
Yeah, but it's still the same. The Yuga-Dharma, when we have like a Sankirtan festival here, where we have 3 days where people are chanting, we are performing the Yuga-Dharma. Even there are guests who are not new guests. Even if it's just us, we are still performing the Yuga-Dharma, the Sankirtan Yakya. It's still the same process. If we are sharing, we may experience a higher taste than if we are just churning the nectar on our own. That may be our personal experience. Going out and giving the holy name may be more pleasurable for us, because we are getting blessed if we do that. But still, the process of coming together and chanting, that's the Sankirtan Yakya. That's the Yuga Dharma. That's the process. It's still enough just to come together and chant. So, thank you very much, and welcome to all of you. Hare Krishna.